Welcome to another episode of Throwing It Back with Sean Farrell. I am Sean Farrell. God is great all the time. All the time, God is great. And let's not waste no time. Let's get right to it. So, I was watching a video where Rasheed Wallace and another guy was talking about NBA, current NBA today, and Rasheed Wallace is not a fan of the way that today's NBA is being played. Okay, I watched the video, and Rasheed Wallace was quoted as saying, "Load management is bullshit." Okay, he said it's bullshit because you're robbing the fans of coming to see the star players. Okay, so he doesn't like the NBA product that it is today. It's all this load management stuff he doesn't like. Okay, and I'm gonna go on ahead and say this. You know what the NBA today is? The NBA is a and one league. That's right, I said it. The NBA is an and one league. You remember those? You remember and one, the playground ball where they're traveling with the ball, doing all these crazy dribbles behind the legs and whatnot? That's what the NBA is. It's a whole bunch of and one stuff, man. It's a whole bunch of and one stuff and shooting threes. That's what the NBA is today. The NBA is an and one league. That's just how I see it. That's just how I see it. James Harden dribbling between his legs 400 times before shooting a shot. That's all the NBA is. It's an and one league. It's an and one league with players who really aren't committed to the game. Okay? I said it. Now, Danny Manning. Okay? Danny Manning had a pretty good college career at Kansas. He played for one of his future NBA coaches, Larry Brown. Led Kansas to the 1988 NCAA championship. He had 31 points, 18 rebounds, and 5 assists, and 2 blocks in that game. And was named College Player of the Year in 1988. Okay? And so he's drafted number 1 by the Clippers in 1988. Okay? And if you remember, there was a game against the Houston Rockets, okay, where the Clippers were playing the Rockets, and Buck Johnson hit a 3-pointer from 55 feet, okay, and it looked like the Rockets had won the game. Then they throw the ball inbounds to Manning, and he actually hit a 55-footer of his own. So the Clippers won the game, okay? So that was one of the highlights that Danny Manning had in his rookie season. They also added Charles Smith in that same draft in 1988. The Clippers did. But 26 games into Danny Manning's rookie season, he tore his ACL, okay? Tore his ACL, was out for the rest of the year, and was out for the first couple of games of the next year, but he came back a few games into 89-90. And the Clippers were a weird team back then. Playing for the Clippers was weird. It was weird because one night Danny Manning would start, another night he was coming off the bench, okay? And it was pretty much the same thing in 1991. He was a part-time starter, part-time coming off the bench player. Okay, so he was a floater, so to speak. He floated between starting and coming off the bench, okay? So he returned in 1990. Then the Clippers acquired Ron Harper, who then tears his ACL. So Harper is out for the year, 1990, and he comes back in midway through 1991, okay? So 1992, Mike Schuler, who had taken over as head coach in 1991. The Clippers were 21-24 when he got canned. Then Mac Calvin took over, had a 1-1 record, and then Larry Brown came in, led them to a 23-12 finish for a 45-37 record. Okay, and took the Utah Jazz to 5 games. Lost. They finished 41-41 in 93. And Manning averages around 23 points per game. And is a all-star. Yeah. Never good when something comes up out of your tooth. And you gotta... Yeah. Anyway, back to the main point, y'all. So he was the first-time All-Star in 1993 after averaging almost 83 points per game. Okay, and so he was growing tired of Larry Brown. Okay, and he was growing tired of playing for the Clippers. Okay. So in 1993 offseason, there was a deal in place. They had a deal. The Clippers had a deal in place, okay, where he would be traded to Charlotte. Danny Manning would be traded to Charlotte for Kendall Gill. Then the Hornets would have their big three of Mourning, Manning, and Johnson, okay? But the deal was nixed, okay? Then they had another trade. The Clippers had another trade lined up with the Miami Heat, where they would send Danny Manning to the Miami Heat, okay? And Glenn Rice would be sent to the Clippers, okay? But Donald Sterling nixed the trade at the last minute because it was said that Donald Sterling had a dream that he would nix the trade. Okay, so the deal was done, but Donald Sterling at the 11th hour said no. Okay, and so Danny Manning turned down a 5-year, $25 million deal with the Clippers, and instead was a 1-year contract, okay? So I believe he was in the final year of his contract, okay? So it was known that he was going to be leaving the Clippers at the end of the season. And of course, after the All-Star break, in which Danny Manning was a All-Star again in 1994, after the All-Star break, the trade with Dominique Wilkins goes through. I'm going to talk about that in a later video, but trade for Dominique Wilkins goes through, and so he signs with the Phoenix Suns, a 1-year deal with the Phoenix Suns in 1990 for the 94-95 season. Okay, and he actually began the season as a starter because Charles Barkley, I believe, had either a quad injury. I believe, yeah. Charles Barkley had a quad injury at the beginning of the season. So Danny Manning began the season as a starter. But, of course, Barkley comes back and then he comes off the bench. But some said that the Suns were even better when he came off the bench, Danny Manning, as opposed to Danny Manning being a starter, okay? But he played 46 games that year, but it was in practice where he came down on Joe Klein's foot. He came down on Joe Klein's foot in practice and injured his other ACL, okay? So he was out for the rest of 1995 and a little bit of 1996 as well. Okay, So he comes back in '96, has a solid season in 1997. He is the sixth man of the year in 1997-98. After averaging 13.5 points per game and 26 minutes a game. And at that time, he was the only player to successfully come back from both knee injuries. He tore his ACL in his left and he tore his ACL in his right. And he came back from both every time. So, oh yeah. So, after the '99 season, he gets traded to the Magic, along with Pat Garrity. And then the Magic turn around and trade him to the Bucks for Dale Ellis, Armand Gilliam, and Chris Gatling. The Mavericks had traded Steve Nash in 1998. The Suns had traded Steve Nash to the Mavericks in 1998 for a first round pick that ended up being Sean Maharian. Okay. So, he's in a reserve role for the Bucks. Then for 2001, he played for the Jazz, averaged 7.5 points with the Jazz. Played pretty well in the first round series against the Mavericks, where he averaged almost 10 points a game. Then played for the Mavs for 2001-2002. Then ended his career with the Pistons in 2003. So, pretty solid career for Danny Manning. And now, Mitch Richmond, okay? Mitch Richmond went to Kansas State, played for Lon Kruger, the former Hawks coach, Atlanta Hawks coach. Over his 2 years there, Mitch Richmond played 2 years for Kansas State. Over his 2 years there, Kansas State had a 45-20 record, okay? And it's 1,327 points at that time were the most for a 2-year college career, okay? So, he's taken 5th overall in 1988 by Golden State. And he came to a team that already had Chris Mullin, okay? They already had Chris Mullin. Now they have Mitch Richmond. And then Don Nelson was the coach. Then they acquired reinforcements like Manute Bol, Terry T. Eagle, and don't forget, John Starks was also on that roster, but he was basically riding the bench. John Starks was, okay? Then you had Ralph Sampson, okay? And so the Warriors go 43-39 that year. And they pull off a first round upset of the Utah Jazz. They swept the Utah Jazz, okay? Then they stole a game in Phoenix. The first 2 games. So it was a 1-1 split in Phoenix, okay? So they still won in Phoenix, but the Suns came back and won the next 3, okay? And so Tim Hardaway's drafted after the season. And the Warriors had a prolific scoring offense, but defensively they had regressed. The Golden State Warriors did. Okay. They regressed, and as a result, they were only 35-47 in 1990. So 1991 was the beginning of Run TEMC, the short-lived Run TEMC. Richmond 23.9, Mullin 25 points per game, Hardaway almost 23 points per game. They were pretty bad defensively again, but They finished 44-38. Had a split with the Spurs in San Antonio in the first round. Then won the next two. And advanced to play the Lakers. Again had a split with the Lakers in LA. But Los Angeles will go on and take the next three. And if you remember, they showed the video of Run DMC in Game 3 in Golden State. They had the video of Run DMC introducing Run TMC. Okay. Obviously, the Lakers saw that and they were like, all right. That's the way y'all want it? Okay. Anyway, so the Lakers won in 5 games, but it was like a very close 5 games. A very close 5 games. 4 of the games were decided by 10 points or less. Yeah. And so so the next season comes, okay? But instead of letting the good times roll, Don Nelson always wanted a bigger team, okay? So on the first day of the 91-92 season, November 1st, 1991, on the first day of the season, the Warriors flip him to Sacramento for Billy Owens. It's Mitch Richmond and a guy named Les Jepson to the Sacramento Kings for Billy Owens. Okay. And Mitch Richmond didn't want to go to Sacramento. Sacramento at the time was basketball Siberia. And Mitch Richmond really wasn't ready to play yet because he just couldn't believe what happened to a trade. And the Golden State Warriors, after the Sacramento Kings won their first game, the Golden State Warriors defeated the Sacramento Kings in the second game, in which Mitch Richmond didn't play. And the Sacramento Kings lost by 62 to the Golden State Warriors. But don't believe me. Check out its score. Check it out. Yep. It was just that bad. It was just that bad. And Mitch Richmond had gone to basketball Siberia. And Mitch Richmond recalls at the time saying if there was any way he could retire, come back and play for the Warriors. And Mitch Richmond had a little laugh about it. He said he didn't know really didn't know what the rules of the basketball were, the NBA at that time. So then his agent told him, hey, the Kings are going to retain your rights no matter what you do. And so then Mitch Richmond begrudgingly took his talents nearly 400 miles to Sacramento. And so he was in basketball Siberia, okay? The Golden State Warriors had just lost by 62, okay? I mean, the Kings had just lost by 62, okay? And Mitch Richmond recalls coming in, and Bobby Hansen, who played for Sacramento at that time, shook his hand and said, welcome to basketball hell, okay? Just a little interesting side note on this, okay? If Bobby Hansen was in basketball hell in Sacramento, okay, then he must have been really blessed to get traded to basketball heaven, okay? What do I mean by that? Because a few days later, he was traded to the Chicago Bulls for Dennis Hobson. Okay. And just a few days ago, Bobby Hansen was telling Mitch Richmond, welcome to basketball hell. Now, he gets traded. He's in basketball heaven playing with Jordan and Pippen and being coached by Phil Jackson. Okay. So that's a little interesting side note. And not only that, the Warriors had lost, the Kings had lost by 62. And the Sacramento Kings had 2 days off. And so Mitch Richmond comes in the locker room one day and nobody's there. And so then Randy Brown, another future Chicago Bull, said, we are off. And Mitch Richmond was like, what kind of team loses by 62 points and has 2 days off? Basketball side area. But throughout his time in Sacramento, he was steady. Averaged 22 points a game from 1992 to 1998. And it was in 1997 he was a top 5 scorer. Okay. And Michael Jordan said Mitch Richmond was his toughest opponent. Always. Mitch Richmond always played him the toughest. Okay. And so I believe it was around 97 where he averaged 25 a game. So he was a top 5 scorer. So he was up in the upper echelon with Jordan as a scorer, man. And so, but in 1992, 1993, 1994, Sacramento never could get past 29 wins, okay? And then 1995, there was some improvement. They finished 39-4, 43. Missed the playoffs. Finished 39-43 again in 1996. They make the playoffs. They play the Sonics in the first round. They win a game in Seattle, but Seattle ultimately wins the series 3-1. 1997, they finished 34-48. Okay. Gary St. Jean had resigned mid-season, their coach, and Eddie Jordan took over. So Eddie Jordan took over, but he couldn't do nothing. Kings finished 34-48 that season. And 1998 was pretty much the same. Ironically, Billy Owens ends up playing with Mitch Richmond at the start of the 97 season. Okay. The Heat trade him to the Sacramento Kings. So ironic, huh? But the Kings were 26-36 at one point during the 98 season. Then they lost 19 of 20 to end the season at 27-55. Okay, so Richmond was a all-star selection from 93 through 98. Then, of course, the Chris Webber trade happens during the playoffs. He gets traded to the Wizards for Chris Webber. Averages around 18 points a game, 1999. But then the Wizards were basketball Siberia too. Okay, they were basketball Siberia. Richmond was still a good player, but they had drafted Richard Hamilton in 1999, so it was only a matter of time before Richard Hamilton replaced him. Okay, and so his final season in Washington was 2001, and I believe the Wizards bought him out or he got released. and they released him because they knew Michael Jordan was coming back. The Wizards knew Michael Jordan was coming back. Okay, and so Richmond could sign with anybody he wanted to, and he signed with the Lakers, and they played the Kings in the conference finals, where Mitch Richmond admitted that it was tough for him to see the turnaround in Sacramento without him. Okay. But the Lakers won in 7. Mitch Richmond scores 2 points in Game 4 of the NBA Finals, which is a Lakers sweep. And Mitch Richmond dribbles out the clock, and he rode off into the sunset as an NBA champion. Okay. Wouldn't want to do it any better that way. All right. That's it. And that's all for Throwing It Back with Sean Farrell. I am Sean Farrell. Peace out. God bless.